Hello, my name is Tony Liu, and for those who don't know me yet, I'm a business attorney helping entrepreneurs to stabilize, grow, and scale their businesses without worrying about or fearing of legal consequences. Today, I have a good fortune to invite Deanna to talk about a few legal issues. You know, last few months, I have sent out my email, Deanna, that I ask my clients, I'm going to invite this fabulous attorney who specialize with, taking care of importer and exporter and help them to streamline their global operations. Show me some questions so I can ask them a question, and I got overwhelming response. So, Dina, can you tell me a little bit more about yourself?
Absolutely, and thank you. So I'm the principal and founder of the Clark-Esposito law firm. And at my firm, we help streamline the global business operations of importers and exporters. So we assist them with import issues related to U.S. customs,
Mm.
those involving transportation providers. We assist customs brokers, freight forwarders, etc. On the export side, we assist with licenses. We also give a hand with OFAC licenses or any issues or inquiries from any of these agencies. So again, Tony, thank you very much for having me on today.
Well, no, I have to say thank you because it's really hard to find attorney with such specialist knowledge, you know especially for my clients that they doing with a lot of imports. They either purchase from the manufacturing in Asia, and then they import the products here, and they always run into all kinds of issues, especially with U.S. customs. Do you mind if I ask you a few questions about that?
Please feel free.
Okay. So a lot of my uh, clients would like to know. Okay, and obviously this is general information, and in whatever we say is it's not meant for legal advice. Um, but they always running into issue with U.S. custom when they import certain merchandise or certain goods. They receive this notice from custom, and then say, you know, we're going to hold your container for a little while and go through the inspection. Is there any way, can you describe a little bit what is their selection criteria and how can a merchant minimize the chance of being selected for inspection?
Absolutely. So U.S. Customs has several checks that it does in advance of the cargo ever being placed onto whatever, whether it's a vessel or an airplane, etc. They do several checks, and they do this because importers are required to report what their cargoes are in advance to U.S. Customs. So Customs already understands who the manufacturer is, the mode of transportation, the routing of the transportation, if it's being used with different transportation providers, etc. And for many of the manufacturers, Customs already has their own idea of whether they're a good manufacturer or something is suspect. Other things that may raise some red flags could do with how it's transiting. If a product shipment is being routed through different countries, the question becomes, well, why is it traveling through so many instead of not coming directly over? Sometimes customs will
Mhm.
come across something such as that there is a shipment of bananas coming from Poland. Well,
Mhm.
U.S. Custom knows that there are no bananas grown in Poland. It doesn't have the right, climate, and so there are different things that can raise these flags. An importer themselves who may have had other issues, that in and of itself can cause a shipment, to be detained. And
Mhm.
with new importers, it's really not a question of if, but when, simply
Mhm.
because you're a new importer. When you do have something that's detained, you could give a call over to customs and try to find out the nature of the detention. Customs
Mhm.
should notify you on their own, but they don't always do so. And you always want to understand what the nature of the detention is so that you could provide them with, if they're looking for specific information, you're in a position to provide it to them to get your cargo released sooner than later. But in addition to that, where they decide not to release it, it then would proceed into a seizure matter, in which case there's a formal proceeding and formalities that need to be followed in order to do anything with the cargo at all.
Now, you mentioned about the container being seized. What happened after they made that decision? Is there anything that we can do to minimize the impact? Because when I heard the word seize, meaning they're gonna confiscate the entire container and perhaps they're gonna destroy it, the goods. Is my assumption correct?
Yes, it is. So, a seizure is a term of art used by US Customs, and it does indeed mean that they have decided to keep your shipment and not give it back to you. When that happens, they must send you a formal notice of seizure, and that comes just by regular mail.
Mm.
And in it, it explains to you what your options are in relation to the shipment, and you have 30 days to respond. One of the things that typically happens where a shipment contains a mixture of cargoes is an importer can go to customs and say, hey, only this part of it is allegedly violative of customs laws. I'd like you to release the remainder of the container to me. Can you do that? And so, where they'll do that, and this does happen, now the importer has an opportunity to go and get that non-violative portion. They may need to go to the customs bonded warehouse where the container is to get it and do so under customs supervision. But that is an option. So it's not
It,
always a total loss.
right.
Um, so yeah.
Is there an option for a merchant to request the U.S. Custom to, transport those containers to a third country? Is that a possibility at all, or not even?
So depending on the nature of the seizure, so what was the basis for, you can make that request. So, for
Mm,
example, there have been times where a product simply was labeled incorrectly.
mm.
I've seen importers petition customs to ask them, can I export this so it can be relabeled because the cost here would be so much higher? Can I export this so that it can be relabeled and then I'll bring it back in? And customs has on occasion allowed that. Um, Areas where something like that wouldn't be allowed is where a product is simply considered inadmissible.
Mm.
And something inadmissible would be something considered a controlled substance, for example, or drug paraphernalia. Say it's a shipment of pipes or something else that they might consider to be suspect. When you run into an admissibility issue and they decide for whatever reason under a certain statute, under a certain law, it cannot come into the United States, then they will not allow you under most circumstances to export it. But again, it depends on what it is.
Awesome. Okay, final question. If clients want to or potential client or merchant, right? Um, they want to find out whether or not this particular company is being sanctioned by the U.S. government. Where can they find that information?
If they want to understand if they're sanctioned in terms of the Office of Foreign Assets Control, OFAC.
I believe so because a lot of right now we've been hearing, especially the trade relationship with China, particular. U.S. government have issued a lot of sanctions, especially in the province of Xinjiang. And if they want to figure out, okay, exactly which company is under that list, is that where we're gonna find out? Is that a place that we can find out?
Well, just to clarify, because we have a lot of import issues related to China, are you referring to imports or are you referring to
Imports, yes.
exports?
Imports.
So right now, in terms of restrictions and sanctions, yeah, I wanted to just explain. Sanctions is a term of art
Hmm.
used in relation to OFAC, the Office of Foreign
Hmm.
Assets Control,
Okay.
and these are issued by executive order.
Yeah.
And what happens is, certain companies or individuals. Of course, we have certain countries we simply have embargoes with, but
Mhm.
there are lists in relation to companies and individuals with whom we cannot do things with. In
Mhm.
terms of importing and where an importer or a particular company may be problematic, um, no, customs does not advertise who is a quote unquote bad or not great manufacturer. There's no way of knowing that. US Customs considers importing to be a privilege and not a right. And so they
Mhm.
have something known as reasonable care. That's the standard that came out of what's called the Customs Modernization Act. And under this standard, importers have the burden of ensuring that everything with their import operations, with their foreign manufacturers, that everything is above board.
Mhm.
And when you do get in trouble as an importer, the first thing that US Customs wants to find, and they request it, are your written customs compliance program. So, certainly, any importers listening to this, that's an important thing to have, and they want to have it documented, and it's the first thing they ask for. So, by having your compliance program and, of course, following it, it
Mhm.
demonstrates to customs that you knew what you were doing or you thought you knew.
Mhm.
At least you exercise some due diligence because, in the event that penalties may be assessed for an alleged violation, having established that you were attempting some kind of due diligence typically works as a mitigating factor against whatever penalties have been issued so you can attempt to lower them.
Awesome. Thank you, Dina, for the time that have this time with me, answering a few questions that I have. Appreciate your time.
My pleasure, Tony. Thanks for your time and for the interview. Take care.
Thank you.